Welcome to our billing training on the Comprehensive Children's Services programs that we currently have with the Department of Behavioral Health. This means that we can offer a full range of services to any child ages 5 through 18 who's experiencing mental health difficulties. The purpose of this training is to clarify the differences between the four programs that we have, explain the service pattern that we expect for a typical client in each program, and clear up the different billing roles you might have on a client's team in each of these programs. So here we have listed the programs in order of intensity, meaning the amount of support that the typical client needs increases as you move from the Student Assistance Program to Success First. At the lowest level, we have the Student Assistance Program, or SAP, where we might see a student once or check in with them once or twice a month. For the School Age Treatment Services, or SATs, this is our more traditional therapy experience where we see students about once a week. Then we have Children's Intensive Services and Success First as our intensive programs where we might see a student every day if necessary. We'll go into more details about all of these programs later. For now, some things to keep in mind about all the programs. First is that this training is just a guideline. It's not the ultimate standard for every client. Services can and will look different for every family and every situation. For example, a SATS client might have some suicidality going on and require some more intensive services for a short time frame until that crisis is past. Or a CIS client might move down to weekly check-ins more quickly than expected and not be seen as intensively. Overall, this is a baseline to think about the service delivery, but the true test is always meeting the client's needs. If a SATS client needs to be seen twice a week in order to stay safe and meet his or her goals, then that's the right pattern of service delivery for that client. On the flip side, billing has to be medically necessary to be valid. If a client really doesn't have something to talk about or a skill to work on every week, they don't need to come in every week just because they're enrolled in SATS. However, if there is a huge change from that baseline, there's probably a sign that the client is ready to change to a different program or maybe move out of services completely. Definitely talk to your supervisor when specific situations come up that deviate from this baseline a lot. Next thing to keep in mind, the clinician is the ICC coordinator for SATS and CIS clients. This means that it's the clinician's job to recognize when a SATS or CIS client might benefit from some rehab services or a linkage and consultation service, and they'll loop in the appropriate family specialist or parent partner when they're needed. It's fine to provide rehab or additional support services for clients in any of our programs, but the balance needs to come from the clinician to ensure that the client is receiving the right level of these extra supports. For Success First clients, on the other hand, the full team is assigned at program intake, given that a client who qualifies for Success First has some significant hardships to address right out of the gate. This also means that Success First clients utilize a separate person to act as their ICC coordinator, who's in charge of coordinating all the services, not just with our team at MCT, but with any external agencies who might be involved in that client's care, such as Child and Family Services, probation, the school with an IEP, the psychiatrist, any of those things. Finally, CIS and Success First clients need the most support from their own natural supports, the people in their life such as family and friends who will help them manage their mental health long term. Much of the emphasis in the initial months of these programs needs to be on developing the natural support system of the client so that they have that system ready when the intensive program comes to an end. All right, so keep those things in mind and we will jump into the details about the programs. Starting with Student Assistance Program, again, this is our lowest level program. Services take place almost entirely at the school rather than in our office or at the client home, and they're often limited to short interventions. For example, you might have a student drop by the RIM High School Wellness Center and you would give them advice on how to manage anxiety around a specific test. That would qualify as a short-term SAP intervention. SAP interventions might also include advising a teacher or a parent with a one-time question about identifying or assisting a student with mental health difficulties. The other component of the SAP program is groups. At the high school and middle school level, these are the NCTI classes, the National Training Curriculum Institute. That includes classes like anger management, truancy, drug and alcohol abuse, and cognitive life skills. At the elementary school level, these groups are skill streaming groups focused on improving social and academic functional skills. The time frame varies depending on the class, but each of these groups meets once a week at various school sites for generally 6 to 12 weeks for each student. So now you've provided a SAP service, how do you bill for it? If it was a short one-time intervention, like helping that student before the test or answering a one-time question from a teacher, you bill it on the Mode 45 card pictured on this slide. This card should be used regardless of the student's insurance status, as with a short-term intervention, you might not even know whether or not the student you just assisted had Medi-Cal. For the groups, billing takes place through a Medi-Cal style note. If the client does not have Medi-Cal, this note is billed with a non-billable code, 550, while for students who do have Medi-Cal, the group is billed as a regular rehab note with the code 551. Moving on to the next program, SATS includes more individual services to reflect the greater degree of symptoms displayed by students in this program. Generally, the bulk of SATS clients' treatment will take place in weekly therapy appointments. If the clinician deems it necessary, they might speak with the parent, a teacher, or another significant person in that student's life to help the student reach their goals, which would mean they would bill some collateral services. The clinician might also decide that the student would benefit from rehab services targeted at helping the student with a particular behavior over a fairly short period of time. Overall, the goal is to help the student manage their mental health disorder and transition out of care generally over the course of a school year, so roughly 10 to 12 months of treatment. Let's see what that looks like in a more visual representation. So here we have a graph of what the typical SATS client's care might look like, showing the number of services given each week here on the axis on the side, as well as the time passing down here on this axis. You can see the blue line stays constant, as the client's one weekly therapy appointment stays constant throughout the course of treatment. Then in specific months, clinician might decide to have a family specialist join the team to target a particular skill, bringing the number of services up to around 3 services per week as the family specialist gives rehab services as well as that one therapy service that keeps continuing. The family specialist would stay on that team until that client had reached that specific goal, so maybe for about 2 months. Then the client would return to just having their weekly therapy appointment until the clinician deemed it necessary to bring in a family specialist to work on a second rehab goal, for example. Overall, keep in mind that SATS is primarily a program that provides clients with therapy, utilizing the rehab, collateral, and linkage and consultation services only when the clinician sees a really great need to bring in other team members. So if you are assigned to a SATS case, what should you bill? Clinicians, of course, should bill therapy or family therapy, depending on what will be best for the client, and can also bill collateral if it will be helpful to meet the client's goals. A family specialist, if assigned to the case, should bill primarily rehab, with collateral and linkage and consultation if necessary. Additionally, parent partners, if assigned to a SATS client, would bill linkage and consultation, but again, only at the request of the clinician who sees a really specific need for that SATS client to have rehab or link and consult. All right, let's talk about the first intensive program, Children's Intensive Services. This program has a similar model to SATS as it's run by the clinician and other team members are only added if necessary. But this program is far more intensive to match the more severe needs of the clients in this program. A CIS client has most likely either been hospitalized or is at risk of suspension or expulsion from school, or they've been put on probation due to symptoms of their mental illness. So there are significant obstacles to address and some important strengths and coping mechanisms to help that client develop. When a CIS client first joins, significant services are needed. The client will be seen at least twice a week for individual therapy, as long as whatever family therapy or collateral appointments are needed to help that client stay safe and begin working towards their goals. The clinician will most likely bring on a family specialist fairly quickly to help with some of the skills the CIS client would like to work on. That family specialist will stay attached to the case even after that specific skill goal is achieved, as the CIS clients can utilize more support to maintain or improve on their skills, as well as work towards new skills that will help them manage and thrive despite their mental health challenges. CIS clients are also more likely to be heavily involved in multiple systems of care. If the CIS client also has an open child welfare case, is on probation, or has an IEP or 504 plan at their school, the clinician will also act as the ICC coordinator to ensure that all of these systems are working together to help the client reach the same goals. Utilizing all of these services, the goal for a CIS client is to transition out of care or to a lower level of maintenance care, such as SATS, after 4 to 6 months in the program. Looking at this visually again, here's a graph showing the number of services and the main focus each month of treatment for the typical CIS client. After enrollment, a CIS client starts with a fairly high number of services each week, to ensure that the client has a safety plan in place for any suicide or self-harm risks, building up their natural supports, initiating family or individual therapy, developing coping and functioning skills, and coordinating care. This can look like 8 to 10 services per week as it first starts, and then tapering off as the client stabilizes and is eventually able to transition out of formal treatment or into SATs to keep up those weekly therapy check-ins without the other intensive services. Therapy stays constant, whether individual or family therapy, whatever's most helpful for this particular client, with collaterals as needed, rehab if that's needed, as well as linking consults or ICC if we need to bring in a lot of other resources or coordinate with some other agencies on the CIS client's care. So let's look at what you bill if you're assigned to a CIS client. The roles of the family specialist and parent partner are the same, providing rehab, collateral, or linkage and consultation as directed by the clinician. The clinician also has the extra role in CIS of acting as ICC coordinator, which would mean they bill 576, intensive care coordination, whenever it's necessary to coordinate the treatment plan and goals across multiple systems of care. Again, that's CFS, probation, the school, the psychiatrist, basically any other agency that's involved in that client's care. And finally, the most intensive program currently at Mountain Counseling and Training is Success First. This program, as it is an early wraparound program, works on the wraparound model that wraps services around the entire family with the goal of keeping the student or child safe in their home environment and developing their ability to remain in their community as a fully participating member. Like CIS, this program starts with intensive services and focuses first on building natural supports so that the client's natural support system will be in place when it's time to transition the client to a lower level of care or out of formal treatment altogether. Aside from working with the natural supports to build up their skill level in helping the client manage the symptoms of their mental illness, the student themselves will receive intensive therapy, rehab, and possibly group or family therapy to enhance their own ability to use their strengths and coping skills while managing around their weaknesses. As with CIS clients, Success First clients also receive ICC to coordinate the multiple systems of care that the client may be involved in. However, due to the often high risk or high complexity of Success First cases, there is a designated ICC coordinator for these teams aside from the clinician, so that the clinician can focus on therapy and the ICC coordinator can handle all the moving pieces of CFS, probation, or the school, or whichever other agencies are involved in this client's care and safety. Like CIS, the goal of Success First is to first ensure the safety of the student, of course, and then transition that student out of care or to a lower level of care after 4 to 6 months of intensive wraparound services. As you can see on this graph, Success First Service Provision looks pretty similar to CIS Service Provision, with a slightly longer rise to the ultimate height of 10 services a week, hitting around month 3 of treatment. This pattern is because most Success First clients have fewer natural supports and need more help building up that team before the full intensity of treatment can begin. Around month 3 is when the child and family team meeting should be one of the main focuses of services. And the goal of the child and family team meeting is to help the student and their family eventually become the leaders of that meeting. So it's not our team who's helping facilitate that meeting and identifying the goals or the strengths and the needs. It's the family coming together and seeing what they need to work on right now to make sure that client can stay safe in their home and in their home community. Then, as the natural supports gradually take over, formal treatment can again taper off until the client is ready to transition to CIS, if it's a case that's still high risk, or to SATs, for clients who are ready to cope with their mental illness with just the help of a weekly check-in with the clinician. And again, here are the billing roles, with the full 4-person team. The clinician again takes point on the therapy, the family specialist specializes with rehab, the ICC coordinator mainly takes control of the ICC, and the parent partner prioritizes linkage and consultation. The clinician, the family specialist, and the ICC coordinator can all also bill collateral when necessary to do so for the client to reach his or her goals.